Hello, friends. How are you? Michael Zuber, author of One Rental at a Time. And so I've been asked to create some material for a potential webinar coming up in a few weeks. And don't know if this is going to go anywhere, but since I spent the last couple of days creating it, I thought I would share it with you. Also, this gives me a chance to go through it as a dry run and see what I think of it when I'm done. Really, the core of this presentation is going to be in PowerPoint. It is going to, be created so I can tell some stories. I can give it to you. This will probably be 30 to 45 minutes. And it's really just our story, some kind of lessons learned, some tricks of the trade, that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hopefully jump to PowerPoint. Hopefully technology works for us. And thank you very much for watching this. And let's see how this works. All right, look at that. It's working. All right, let me move this window up just a little bit. Okay, so just real quick, again, the title is Buy and Hold Rentals are Perfect Side Hustle for Busy Professionals. Again, this is who I was, right? A busy professional the last 15 years. I'm not one saying to quit your job and just jump into it full time. I think that's very risky for most. Maybe it works out for a few. But it's not something I did, and thus can't really speak about it. This will be uploaded to my YouTube channel, which I will talk about a couple of times in this presentation. But it's obviously called One Rental at a Time. And do me a favor, if you like this video, you like daily videos about real estate investing or investor interviews or anything like that, please subscribe to the channel. I'd love to hear from you. Hit that like button if you like this presentation. Let me know what parts you think might be a little choppy. I'd love to hear that. Again, I don't know if this webinar idea will come together, but I was asked to do it, and I like speaking to you all, so I want to make sure that I shared it with you. And then lastly, go ahead and feel free to leave a comment. Comments are always fun because I get to really see maybe what I'm not clear on, what I can crisp up. And also, I have something on my channel called Subscriber Questions. And I get those because you leave comments on my videos. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. So this is the agenda we're going to go through. Again, this is probably going to be 45 minutes in duration or thereabouts. Going through why buy and hold rentals work as a great side hustle, right? There are some things that are perfect for busy professionals. And, again, it comes from my experience, but hopefully they resonate with you. I think there's some particular reasons busy professionals should consider buy and hold rentals, right? There are lots of options out there, but I think there are a few things that you'll see that I think are particularly attractive about this. My experience, I think it's always interesting. You should always question who is speaking to you. If any of you have been following me for a while, you may have heard a lot on this slide, but many of you maybe haven't. So I will tell you our story, our background in a single slide. And if you want to know more, you can read the book or follow me on One Rental at a Time on YouTube. I'm going to talk about how we got started, kind of who we were, back in 2003 or 2002, and just sort of laid out there for all to see. We are going to talk about things that helped us along the way. I think it's important to recognize, the assets that we had, and as you'll see, many of you have as well. So that will be important. I think it's always important to tell future landlords or investors that the business is going to test you. Stuff breaks, people do bad things. It's tenants, toilets, termites, all that stuff is real. But however, that pain of those things is so small, and the rewards are so great that I think as you'll see, the rewards far exceed them. But that doesn't mean the pains go away, right? They're still there. They still happen. So realize they're there. There's a couple of things we found that help kind of balance the give and take of the ups and downs, and I thought I would share them with you. I do have a concept I like to talk about because I think talking about financial freedom or independence or quitting your job because you have enough income is I don't know if it's foolhardy is too strong a word, but it's just too big a goal for many people to start. So I like to talk about just getting 4, right? I really do believe 4 rentals can change your life. And with that, I think, a lot of people will do some pretty spectacular things. We're going to talk about what I teach and also what I recommend. I do get asked to mentor and help people along the way. So I have created some stuff that try to create scale because I can only have coffee so much and lunches so often before it really impacts our business, because we're still growing, right? We're still adding rentals. We're doing flips now. So I really do try to help as many people as I can. So we'll see. We'll put it all out there and see what you guys think. And then there's some next steps. Okay. So why buy and hold rentals as a side hustle? Well, first off, you can leverage the time and effort. When you do this correctly, you're investing little bits of time up front. Maybe it's hours, maybe it's 15 hours over 2 months, right? As you learn your market. But eventually when you buy something, you're spending minutes, hopefully a week. And what you're getting is long-term value, right? Because you'll see, I talk about thinking in decades. So the returns that mount up, right? They start as little trickles, and then they become a stream, and then they become a raging river, and then you have something. That's something that, I guess everybody thinks about, but it's hard to imagine. Any investments you put up here in time will have huge rewards in a decade or so. So just appreciate that. I think we all need to admit that inflation is real. I think wages are going to go up. I think when wages go up, rents go up. I think commodities are going to go up if the economy keeps booming like it is now, and it certainly could. Cement and steel and all these other things have to get more expensive as we deploy the $2 trillion infrastructure plan. And this is just, if you see this stuff coming, people, you need to take advantage of it. The upcycle from inflation that could be coming is a huge benefit when you own assets. And I am so looking forward to it. And hopefully you come along for the ride and see what's coming. I think this is the best thing about buy and hold rentals as a side hustle. Let's say you're conservative like me. You put 30% down, right? So let's say it's 200 grand. You put 30% down, or $60,000. And in 30 years, you're going to have somebody else pay for your asset. Somebody else that you don't really know bought 70% of your asset for you. How cool is that? And when you do that over and over and over, and you have lots and lots and lots of people buying you assets, I sleep really well at night, and I strongly encourage you to think about it. Then it's tax friendly, right? There are so few loopholes, or I don't know if loopholes is the right word. There are so few tax incentives, but there are still some existing. As of today, when I wrote this, I just did my taxes, so they were available. Who knows what happens in the future? But depreciation is a huge plus for landlords. You can actually hide, I guess, right? Some of the income that you get, some of the positive income, right? If you're depreciating that same 200K house, maybe you're writing off 10 grand a year. So the first 10 grand in positive cash flow you get to keep. It's pretty cool. 1031 exchange, the ability to take one asset, exchange it for a like kind and likely bigger or higher quality asset is awesome. There's also the stepped up basis for your family should you eventually pass on, which admittedly we all will do. I hope it's decades in front of you. But if you hold on to these until you're passing, your heirs, if you structured your portfolio correctly and all that other stuff that you've talked to lawyers about, they'll get a stepped up basis. So they won't have that huge hit, right? All the buildings we own, we're going to own them until we die. They'll be depreciated to zero, and then we're going to give them to our daughter, and she's going to be well off. And if she wants to sell them, good for her. Wish her the best of luck. And then today, the availability of relatively inexpensive fixed rate conservative financing. This may sound kind of obvious, but trust me, financing wasn't always an option. Like from 2009 to 13, it was kind of hard. It's getting easier. I strongly recommend being conservative. In the US, that's 15 or 30-year debt. I have since learned from some followers that if you're in Canada, you don't really do 30-year debt. But in the end, if you're looking to hold something for the rest of your life, try to organize the financing to be as conservative as possible and as fixed rate as long as possible is my recommendation. So hopefully this makes sense. These are the kinds of things you're going to get in this presentation. I'm just going to give you, every slide should be interesting, should have actionable information, and where appropriate, I'll try to tie in real life examples in our story. So why your busy professionals should look at buy and hold rentals? I think that's a fair question, right? You have a lot of things. You should stock market, bonds, you know, Bitcoin, you know, pot stocks, whatever it is, cannabis. Um, Here's the big one for me: is live where you want, but invest where the numbers make sense. Right. You'll see this later on the slide of our story. We live in the Silicon Valley. You know, it's not easy to have a cash flow rental in the Silicon Valley. This is where the jobs were. This is where my headquarters of my companies were. So this is where I like to live. And then, you know, it didn't make sense here. So we invested somewhere else. For us, this meant Fresno, California. Maybe for you, it means the Midwest. Maybe it's the Southeast. I don't know. But what you're going to get in this presentation is how I would attack that decision and how I would use that decision to help me. So again, live where you want, but invest where the numbers make sense. Busy professionals can outsource busy or time-consuming items. What surprises some people is I've had a property manager since day one, right? We, as you'll see later, our first purchase was on Norris Drive. Since we had that one little house, we've had a property manager, and it was because we were busy. We didn't want to be our own managers. We would not do a deal that wasn't profitable enough to pay another one. Because for us, it wasn't the monthly cash flow in the beginning, which was that little stream. We wanted the big river that would come after years, if not decades. And thus, we're willing to pay someone to remove the headaches. I strongly recommend property management be put in place. But if you want to self-manage and you can walk to see all of yours, awesome, totally cool. I'm not the guy for that. My stuff's 2.5 hours away one way. So I was happy to pay someone else. You know, busy professionals can control the key items that have the biggest impact, right? If you're going to be interested in buy and hold rentals, there's two things that I always kept internal. One was securing capital, right? Keep your day job. Be the very, very best version of you at your day job. If you are a commission-based sales rep, crush it, right? Go make that extra money so you can buy more assets. That was one, right? So earn capital, right? The other one is deal selection. My job was always secure capital and find deals. Everything else, the running of the properties, the bookkeeping, all that other stuff, I would give to others happily. But you need to look at the two big things. And these are the kinds of things that I teach and I focus on, and I really, really want to help people get right, is how to find the right deals, how to understand a bad, average, good, and great deals. If you can do that in any market, if you want to be in Huntsville, Alabama, or Detroit, Michigan, or Cleveland, Ohio, it doesn't matter. If you can understand a bad, an average, a good, and great deal for your market, you're going to be ahead of the game and well off. Again, effort can take minutes a week and mostly be off hours, right? Again, as you'll see in a moment, I think the next slide is our story. I traveled all over the world and could make this work. I could do stuff in the evenings, could do stuff early in the mornings. I didn't have to impact my day job. I tried to be the best version of myself during the day so I could get promoted. I can get that extra stock. I could get that commission, whatever it was, because I knew that if I was that version of me, that I could invest all that extra stuff into buying more rentals as opposed to buying toys or something else. So again, create or secure capital and find deals, I think are very important. And then finally, something that I got wrong and I didn't really recognize until I wrote that book behind me, One Rental at a Time, is pride of ownership or turnkey rentals are a great way to reduce risk. So what do I mean by that? I was enamored by cheap properties, right? Let's just again use that 200K example I spoke about earlier. Let's say there was a version, a house next door, same configuration, same square footage, everything's the same, except it's been well lived in. And I can buy it for $150, right? So there's a $50K spread. But let's say for whatever reason, it took $30,000 to bring it up. Here's the problem. If you're going to do a 200K deal, which is the pretty one, and you do 20% down, you're going to spend $40,000. If you buy my cheap property, again, 150 with 20% down, that's 30 grand. However, if you have to spend another 30 grand, you're now consuming too much cash. And this was the problem for me, is I was choosing investments for us that consumed too much cash. I had the same house, right? 200K, 150. I chose the 150 because it was cheaper. Unfortunately, the cheaper house consumed more cash. And for most of us, cash is the problem, not time, cash. So for most of us, I should have bought the 200K house in this example, used the $40,000 and been happy, as opposed to $30,000 down and $30,000 to repair. So just realize that when you do the math, cheap isn't always the best option, as I learned in the rearview mirror, and now I try to help people see. So here's my experience. My life changed on my 30th birthday. I had done everything right. I'd gone to school, graduated college, was the first in my family to graduate a 4-year university, mother or father, right? Aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, cousins. I was the first one ever in generations to graduate college. Went ahead and got a corporate job, then went ahead and got an MBA after a couple of years. And again, only one in my family to do that, get the 4-year degree and get the MBA. So I got to my 30th birthday and didn't have much to show for it. What I realized is the rat race was real. I had unwittingly jumped into the rat race, not knowing what it was. The rat race being make more, spend more, make more, spend more, make more, spend more, and you just keep running as fast as possible. This is particularly damaging when you realize that the business cycle is real, and if it turns on you and turns hard and you have nothing to show for it, that you could be in a pretty bad position. And that scared me a lot, right? Having a growing family, responsibilities, and having this increased expenditures just every month. It was rough, and knew we had to do something. The other thing I did on my 30th birthday is I looked up the org chart. I looked 2 or 3 levels, right? Because I was just entry level, individual contributor, no real responsibilities other than, hey, do your little job, whatever that job was. So I looked up, maybe it was even 4 levels, 3 or 4 levels. And what I saw was not a pretty picture. I saw people that were very stressed out. They didn't look like they were having any fun. They were seemingly all unhealthy, if not blatantly overweight. They seemed after hours to be addicted to foreign substance, either legal like alcohol or cigarettes, or illegal as in uppers or downers or whatever. They seemed to all be on their 2nd or 3rd marriages, many of them having a friend on the side, if you know what I mean. And it was just a lifestyle I wanted nothing with. All of that disgusts me and is not what I wanted to be or wanted to even be around if I could avoid it. So think about it, right? 30th birthday, you're in the rat race. You look up, you're doing what you're supposed to do, go to school, get a good job, climb the corporate ladder. And I was disgusted by what I saw. So what I realized on my 30th birthday is I needed a side hustle that would fit into my very busy life and allow me to chip away at financial freedom, right? This is the aha moment that I had. This aha moment came from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He gets the, Robert Kiyosaki, the big purple book. That's kind of what started it. So 15 years ago, we bought a house on Norris Drive. I've talked about it or made reference to Norris Drive earlier. That was our first rental. I'll share that story in a minute, but it doesn't start very well. In fact, it starts so horribly wrong that most people would never have bought a second one, but thankfully we did. And, we were around to tell the story. So 15 years ago, without getting too specific, I was a technology professional, live in the Silicon Valley. I had I did stuff around the country first, and over time was promoted to various worldwide positions. And, I could be in China or Australia or Europe or South America. Never made it out to Africa, but I could have been anywhere. And, that's just the reality that I was in. We had growing family responsibility, so it wasn't like I was a bachelor, wife, daughter, all that stuff. This is a big one people, don't appreciate a lot, is when I said we had really nothing to fall back on, we had a measly $40,000. Now I realize that's more than some. I'm not blind to that fact, but I promise you, most of the people watching this have access to more than that. That's all we had to our name on my 30th birthday, and after going to school, getting the MBA, having a good job, and it just needed to be better. So how did we get started? So I've already mentioned it, but Rich Dad Poor Dad changed my life. I did not read a book cover to cover in high school, but I read this book 5 times in a row, cover to cover. It changed my life, no question. Rentals and cash flow, right? Specifically, positive cash flow became the answer, and I was all in. That's what we went after. The other thing we did, that's kind of subtle, that it's kind of hinted at earlier, is we were spending too much. Our lifestyle was, if our income was here, our lifestyle was, very close, if not slightly above, slightly below. It wasn't okay. So what we did is made a conscious decision to live on less than 50% of our income. It worked most of the time. There were a couple of times where we went over that, whether it was a trip to see, family overseas or whatnot. But it worked, and we sacrificed together, and it was huge. It wasn't fun. Sacrifice is not fun. We stayed in the same little 1,300 square foot condo, even though our income soared, and net worth soared over the years. We drove the same beat up cars for over a decade. We couldn't afford any upgrades when we bought the condo, and we didn't have any upgrades after 15 years, even though we clearly could have, right? Again, sacrifice is not fun, but boy, is it so worth it. And you need to get on the same page as your significant other if you're doing this together and with someone. The first thing we did, because all the real estate books we saw said invest in your backyard, right? Have you heard that? Well, I live in Mountain View, home to Google and near Facebook and Cisco Systems and all these other high-tech companies, and nothing makes sense. So that kind of didn't work very well, right? Everything's too expensive. So we eventually found a market called Fresno, California, which I've mentioned. It is 2.5 hours one way, driving distance away, so 5-hour round trip, right before we see one property. And that was a market that made sense. And there's plenty of videos on my channel that talk about whys and hows and all of that. But if you want to know, leave a comment and we'll get into it there. Again, I didn't know any better. So I went to a bank and got my first investor loan, put 20% down. Again, I didn't know any different. So that's what we did. So what helped along the way? First off, we got comfortable living on less. I got to tell you, this is a big deal, folks. We spent, as our incomes rose every year, right? 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Every year our income went up, our lifestyle went up. We had to get comfortable on living on less. And that's a big thing for lots of people. We didn't upgrade the house, cars, vacations as our income rose. I talked about that earlier, but again, it bears repeating. The other thing we did is we never spent a real estate dollar on anything but more real estate. So whether it was positive cash flow, whether it was a cash out refinance or any other way that dollars flowed to us, everything went back into, the next rental property. Hence the name behind my right shoulder, one rental at a time. That was our myopic focus. That's what we went after, and that's what we did together. The other thing we did is conservative finance. This is something that both of us with finance backgrounds sort of wouldn't get around. We didn't like, over leverage, and it really saved us during the crash. And it's something we preach going forward, is always conservatively finance. So you can hold this thing, even if the real estate depression happens again, the building will cash flow. It doesn't matter. Prices will come back. So always conservative finance. Don't be over leveraged. So you have alligators. Your portfolio is alligators, all that negative cash flow, and you lose them all back to the bank via REOs or short sales or anything of that nature. Please, please, please conservatively finance them. You've got to be able to build and manage a team. Something you'll see over time is, again, you're investing slivers of your time, is you need to be able to manage team members, set expectations, communicate with them, improve, and sometimes fire them. That is a reality. We had to fire 4 or 5 property managers in our first 4 or 5 years because they weren't working out. And that's hard, especially in a market that you're so far away from. Cash out refis. We had enough cash to buy 3 properties. That was that $40K we talked about earlier. However, how we kept buying after that was cash out refis. The market was going up. It was the seller's market. specifically in Fresno, if you can look at the history. So we did some cash out refis and used those to purchase, property 4, property 5, property 6, and so on. 1031 exchanges. This is a big one for us. This is game changing. We got to a point in the real estate cycle where single family homes were overpriced, and we knew it, but we didn't know what to do. There were so many people buying them, we didn't know what to do. So we went to a real estate meetup. There was somebody there talking about commercial buildings. And then, through conversation, they brought up the idea of small multis, 5 to 10 units. So we started selling our houses for overinflated prices, and we ended up getting some small apartments. So we went from roughly 8 doors to 80 doors in the matter of a year or a year and a half. And it saved us because when the crash happened, all the houses were cut in half or more. The apartments went down in value, but cash flows went up because rents went up, because more people wanted to rent and quality went up. It was a magical time to be a landlord. Private money. Sometimes in your career, lending may get tough, may get hard. So being able to communicate with your friends and family and have them come along for the ride and invest some of the capital they have can be win-win if you structure them correctly. And there's plenty of videos on my channel about that. But again, private money was very helpful. Real estate cycles. I've kind of hinted at it, but real estate cycles go up, they go down, they come back again. And if you can watch them and understand what's going on and reposition yourself at different times, you can get outsized gains and be in great position. And that was very helpful for us. So all of this so far has probably been very rosy, but I want to make sure you understand that this business has its thorns and has its problems. So I promised you this story earlier. I call it the Norris Drive story. Again, it's our first rental. So let me set the scene for you. We spent a year looking in the Bay Area, right? 30 minutes from home, nothing. We find Fresno and we find Norris Drive. We're super excited. We offer full price, right? We don't know any different. We don't negotiate. So we offer full price. They accept, we get it, bingo, bango, do a couple of, $1,000 in repairs, clean up and move a tenant in. We do everything right. Credit checks, criminal records, references, verification of jobs, everything was done as it should have been. Unfortunately, that's where things go wrong. 2 weeks after moving into our house, the family splits up. The wife takes off. She goes to New Mexico or Arizona. Never hear from her again. And unfortunately, the husband does not take this departure very well. He stops going to work and he stops paying and he starts to drink. And, I invest in California. So 2 weeks go by. He doesn't make his payment. We do, three-day notice and makes it very clear that he's not going to pay again. And he's going to enjoy his time via the eviction process. So it took us about another 60 days to get him out. We get him out. Sort of quasi clockwork, right? Takes about 45 to 60 days. So we get him out. And unfortunately, now we've had 3 months of no rent collection. We've had to pay the mortgage. Don't forget. And now he leaves the house and destroyed. And, we have to spend $15,000 repairing it. Right. So we collected a 1 month's rent and a deposit when they moved in. We then lose 3 months of rent. We then hit with a $15,000 repair bill and another lost month because it just takes time to repair it. I'm still floored that we kept going. I think most people quit, right? The market's 2.5 hours away. That sucked. Go sell it, eat the loss, claim it on your taxes and be done. It's probably what most people do. But we kept going. And Olivia gets 100% of the credit for that. Without her, this story, I'm not here talking to you without her. And I'm very thankful. And I hope she watches this and knows how heartfelt thanks I have for her for that. The other things you got to realize is that evictions, disappearing tenants, that's always fun. They get a U-Haul, they come in at midnight, they take all their stuff and they vanish. It happens. Contractors, some are good, some are bad, some steal, some don't. Mother Nature, right? Sometimes it rains a lot. Sometimes it's really, really windy. You have hail. Yeah, other parts of the country, you have tornadoes and hurricanes. Just Mother Nature, right? Neighbors, right? Just because you live next to someone doesn't mean you like them. You know, sometimes neighbors fight, right? So this is a people business, and stuff's going to happen, and you've got to be able to roll with the punches. And I'll talk about that in another slide, how we kept going. Again, fires happen. I remember the first time we had a fire, kitchen fire. Another time, somebody burnt down one of our recently vacant properties. That was fun. But again, that's why you have insurance. It's actually a relatively smooth process if you have the right kind of insurance, and it all works out. You know, water damage, you know, leaks happen, whether it's a roof leak or a plumbing leak. Death, right? When you own real estate long enough, people are going to die. Maybe it's a tenant. Maybe they die in your house. Maybe they die outside your house. Who knows? But it happens. It's a natural part of life. And when you're in a people business, that stuff's going to happen. Right. So again, people stuff, it's lots of great stuff happens, weddings, kids, all great stuff. But also you get the good and the bad. It's funny that most people talk about the bad, but you know, maybe that's just more headlines. So what did we find that helped us along the way? You've got a network. You really can't do this on your own. You've got to get out. You've got to commiserate with other landlords, right? The last thing you need to do is network with people that don't have real estate. If all of your friends don't have real estate and you're the only one, and you tell them about the person who didn't pay rent, it's going to be a bad conversation because it's just going to spiral negative. But if you're in a room, if you own one rental and you're at a real estate meetup and you talk about an eviction, man, you're going to have so many people around you going, "Oh, don't worry about it, man. It's all good. It just takes time. And did you talk to so-and-so and you do this and do that?" And please network. If you're going to be in this business, find your local real estate meetup, go to every event, go to every other event, but make sure you're going. You've got to distance yourselves from negative friends. I still have some people telling me that don't know what we've done, that real estate investing is risky, specifically buy and hold, which is all we've ever done for 15 years. I sort of chuckle when they say that, after, you know, given that we retired because of it. But, you know, if they believe it's risky, that's okay. You just got to get away from that and cut that stuff out. You got to try to mitigate the ups and downs of your emotions. This is a big one. It's easier for some folks, and I realize for some it's just not easy. But in real estate investing, if you let every good or bad moment affect you, it'll hurt. That's a lot of stress. But if you can just kind of moderate the highs and the lows, you're going to be in a much better position, right? I have found you have to moderate both the ups and the downs. If you accept the ups and then you try to moderate the downs, that hasn't worked for me. So I try to balance all of them. You got to think long-term, right? You get a phone call about something breaking, that's a blip, right? That's a blip because you should be thinking decades. And what about the next 120 months of rent collection, right? Think about that as opposed to so-and-so's threw a rock through your window, right? Just don't let those little individual moments wreck your future. And then the last one is always remember that the good far outweighs the bad every time. I don't know why, you know, landlords and buy and hold get such a bad rap when it offers so much upside. All the good is far greater. Rents than when we started to where they are now, 50%. Inflation, prices have gone up 200 or 300% on some of this stuff. So the good far outweighs the bad. So this is a topic that I think most people, if they wanted to, could go after 4 rentals in the next 2 to 8 years. I think if you got 4 rentals over the next 2 to 8 years, your life could be different. Even if you don't get a 5th one, if you just get to 4, I think your life could be different. And I chose 4 because it's the easiest financing. You can go get a Freddie, Fannie, or FHA loan. I guess it's an FHA loan without reserves and seasoning periods and all of that stuff. So it's relatively easy to go get 4 investment loans. Ask yourself, what would 4 free and clear rentals in your area be worth to you in the future, right? So let's say your market's 200K again, just to keep with an earlier example. Over 15 to 30 years, what do you think that's worth? 300, 350, 400? What do you think rent is? If rent's $2,000 today, is it $4,000? Is it 3,500? Shoot, is it $3,000? You know, who knows, right? Do the math. Look at the future. Think decades. And again, I think 4 rentals would do you really, really good. I think if you can get 4 rentals, you can decide or continue. I think some people get to 4 and they go, that's enough, I'm done. Others go, wow, 4 is good, give me some more, right? And if you want to get past 4, then you go to 10, sort of see what's going on. Again, these assets you're buying are inflation protected, they're paid off by others, they provide additional flexibility and options when you retire. Maybe you sell one, pay off the other 3. Maybe you do a cash out refi. Who knows? You're going to have options because you have assets and you have income producing assets. It's really, really fun and a great place to be. So some things we teach or recommend is you got to think in decades, right? If you're thinking in days, weeks, months, or even years, you're not thinking long enough. Sorry, I might sneeze. Right? You got to think in decades. You have to conservatively finance. And I say this one again because we saw people that were in our circle in 2008, 9, and 10 get crushed because they weren't conservatively financed. They were over leveraged. They had balloon loans, 2 and 28s, where for 2 years they were really low rates, and then they reset to really high rates. It was ugly. Well-used properties that sell at discounts are not always great options. Do the math. This is my cheap property math we did earlier. Remember the 200K and 150K? Cheap's not always the right answer. I freely admit that I bought cheap way too often. And again, it hurt us. One thing I kicked myself on is if I had bought cleaner properties all those years ago and conserved my cash, where would we be today? We'd be in a better position. And that hurts to say, but it's true. You got to avoid the shiny object syndrome with real estate, right? If you go on YouTube University or any other channel, you could be watching Subject 2, you could watch probate, flipping, wholesaling, land, mobile homes, and it goes on and on and on and on. Right? So if you're going to be a buy and hold investor, get focused, go after it and don't get distracted. It's a team sport, but you get to manage it, you get to build it, you get to grow it, right? You get to set expectations, you get to manage people in and manage people out. Use slivers of valuable time to maximum return, right? We talked very early on about using minutes or hours over a couple of weeks and then just reaping the rewards year after year after year after year. Just for example, that Norris Drive house we bought started horribly, as you heard me tell you, but it worked out great. We ended up exchanging out of that into an apartment building that we still own today. So all that time working on Norris Drive 15 years ago, we're still getting cash flow from today, and it's a great feeling. I have created one acronym I particularly like. It's called CRAP. It stands for Cash Rich, Asset Poor. I think being cash rich and asset poor is the wrong way to live. I think you're set up to be surprised in a negative way. I could not see a way that cash is not trash with the amount of spending going on in our economy and in our government. Cash is going to continually be devalued. And if you don't have assets to be the other side of the equation, you could be in a really bad position. I think new investors and students must do a couple of things. I think you have to do your homework. If you want to invest in a particular market, you have to do your homework. In my book, I talk about 50, going to look at 50. And that going look could be online, so you don't actually have to drive them. But people, if you run into someone saying, hey, look at this house or do this or that, and you haven't looked at the market, how do you know they're not taking advantage of you? I mean, seriously, how do you know? Just think about that. I think you need to be able to do enough homework to go, hey, this is a bad deal. That's an average deal. That's a good deal. And that's a great deal. And that's really what I try to get all of my students to understand is that's step 1 through 3 in my course is to do bad, average, good, and great. And this only happened because I got asked over and over and over again to help people. So that's what we're trying to do. You have to also understand your buying criteria. Most people stuck on 0 don't know their buying criteria, right? I'm really interested. I do all this. I do that. Well, what's your buying criteria? Oh, I want a good deal. No, what's your buying criteria? No, I want a good deal. Sorry, that's not a buying criteria. How do you know what a good deal to me is not a good deal to you, right? Do you want a 5% return? Do you want a 10% return? Do you want, do you want a yellow house on a busy street I don't know what you want, whatever you want, right? It's just have your own buying criteria. If looking at turnkey providers, which it seems to be a lot of them these days, please make sure you interview them and the group first. Spend your time figuring them out. We have all heard stories about people being burned bad. It could have been the great market, but if you have a bad provider, watch out. And frankly, I think a great provider could do great things in a bad market. So realize if you're going to rely on a turnkey provider in another market, another state, please do your homework on them and then look at the market and look at the properties, but do it on them first. The other one that I missed early on, and I talk about in the book, is understand your short and long-term goals. I was so heads down on being, out of the rat race, as I shared with you very early in this presentation, that I forgot to enjoy the journey. Seriously, it was dumb. It was unhealthy, frankly. And we should have enjoyed the journey just a little bit. And I'm not talking about blowing money. We could have had a cupcake or something just to appreciate, hey, we got 10 properties. Wow, yay. We didn't do anything like that. And we should have created memories along the way, because the journey tests you and it's not always fun. And, I should have been better. And that's on me. You're never going to be done at growing your network, right? We've been doing this a long time, and I still try to meet new people all the time. I think your network is very tied to your net worth. And the other thing I should have said here, and I didn't because I didn't want to go too negative here, is sometimes you have to prune your network. Sometimes people that can be the most positive joys of your life, something happens years down the line and they're negative. So don't be afraid to cut them out if appropriate. So next steps. I would ask, if you're watching this and you like what's going on, it doesn't cost you anything. I'd love you to go to my YouTube channel called One Rental at a Time. It's youtube.com/one rental at a time, or you can just search One Rental at a Time. If you can subscribe to that, that would be wonderful. Oh, look at that. I included the link. And then again, we did write a book. You've seen it over my shoulder in this video here. You can find a complete review of our 15-year journey in it, from that single house to financial freedom, on Amazon. And that's what the book looks like. You can search the title, One Rental at a Time, or just search my name, Michael Zuber. And again, we do have a website. Everyone needs a website, right? So guess what? It's called onerentalatatime.com. And again, if you want to kind of understand or follow the journey or join the path that we created, I have something for you, and I even have an extra surprise. So if you want to get on this journey and kind of follow our path, that is an option. If you want a plan, you want or need a plan B because you just realize that the good times won't last forever. This could work for you. If you want a side hustle, that's really the title of this thing. If you want to do something on the side, you want to stay focused on your day job, be really, really good at your day job, I think buy and hold rentals are the option. If you want something that doesn't consume a lot of time, hopefully you've seen that that's possible here. And again, if you want a proven vehicle, our story is out there, but real estate's created more millionaires than any other single thing. And again, it's out there. It's well understood. So we did create a program after trying to, help hundreds of people do this. We give you everything we did in the beginning. We've also just recently included a private Facebook group just for students, which is taking off, which is a lot of fun because we're adding content all the time. We're actually creating step 6 right now. We do something called SRs, which stand for student requests. So if you're in our private Facebook group and you give me a request and there's a new video idea that comes out, we just add it, no charge. And what we're going to do is we're going to give you the only coupon code I've ever done. I've never done a coupon code, but if you've watched this long and this far and you have interest in this, following what we did, you're going to get $50 off. So here's the course name. It's called How to Start One Rental at a Time, and it's on the platform called Teachable. You can find it on our website. There's a little link there, or you can just probably search one rental at a time. Once purchased, please ask to join the private Facebook group. That is called One Rental at a Time Works. And that's where we interact. That's what we ask questions. It's where the student request ideas come from. So here's the link. I'm sorry, it's kind of long. Again, you can get it from our website or here. It's onerentalatatime.teachable.com. There you go. How to start one rental at a time. But here's what you want. This is what it looks like when you get to the screen. You can see the course right there costs $199. But if you watched it this long, it's not going to cost you $199. You're going to save $50. So what you will do is you would say enroll in the course, $199. Then there's a place that says coupon. Simply type in web50, no space. That will entitle you to $50 off. I figure if you've been listening to me for the last, whatever it's been, let's guess 40 minutes, you're going to get paid for your time. And hopefully you appreciate that. So at the end, I wanted to give you my email. Here it is, mzuber@onerental@a-time. Again, there's a picture of the book. I think it's got 60 some odd reviews, 50. I think it's got 61 reviews, 65 star and one star. The 1-star review was looking for a how-to book. And that's not what this book is. It's our story, how we did it, some recommendations and things of that nature. I got to tell you that 1 star still hurts, but I appreciate where he or she was coming from. So that's okay. As always, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. So hopefully that made sense. That felt good. I'm actually not sure how long this video was. But again, I wanted to give it to you. I don't know if this webinar idea is gonna happen. That was a fun dry run. Hopefully you took something from it. And if you have any interest, again, in following the path that we started on way back on Norris Drive through financial independence, look up the course and please use that coupon code. No reason to spend an extra $50 if you don't have to. All right, everybody, have a great day.